Hopefully you're not here just for the bonus points, but if you are, I hope you learned something too. My name is Liz Wright. I am a psychology instructor at Northwest Vista College. Miss Brandy Barrera was to be presenting today. Miss Barrera got sick. We'll discuss possible reasons why in a couple minutes. So I'm going to do the presentation instead of Brandy. I hope you don't mind. So we're going to be talking about the connection between stress and health and managing your stress. If you've taken my general psychology course or a general psychology course before, you've probably heard some of this information. I made sure to make it a little bit more in-depth, especially since I know I've got some biology students, I've got some pre-med students who are coming today, so we wanted to make it a little bit more in-depth than what you would have learned in a general psychology course. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them during the presentation. You don't have to wait until the end. What else do I want to tell you? With this, the psychology lecture series is something that we present every semester. We present 3 per semester. So next semester we will have one in February, one in March, and one in April. So if you're interested in learning more about psychology outside of the classroom, feel free to come back, and we advertise those throughout the year. Do you want to take it off? Is it working? Can you hear me? Hey, all right. That's fantastic. So let's talk about what we're going to do today, real quick. First, we're going to define stress, talk about the causes of stress. We'll talk about some biological responses to stress. So when you get stressed, what does your brain do? What does your body do? What do your lungs do, etc. We're going to talk about benefits and drawbacks to stress. So why does it happen and why might it actually be useful to us? We'll talk about something called general adaptation syndrome, which is where the body gets used to stress. Is that a good idea or a bad idea? We'll talk about some outcomes from stress, how to avoid stress, and then also once you've got stress, how do you get rid of it? All right? So first question becomes, obviously, you want to define your topic. So what is stress? According to David Myers, who's the author of the Intro Psych textbook that we use at Northwest Vista College, it is the process by which we perceive and respond to certain events called stressors that we appraise as threatening or challenging. A couple things we want to think about when we're looking at that definition. First of all, stress is a process, and that's one of the things we're going to look at next, is how we move from recognizing a stressor to the brain reacting to that stressor. We also want to recognize that it's how we perceive something. So your perception of an event, how you think about it, relates to your personal response to a stressor. One person may look at something and say, oh, that's exciting, I really can't wait to do that. Another person may think, I want to vomit, I am so stressed out. It's all based upon the perception that you have of that event. So it's based upon an appraisal that you make of whether something is a threat or something is a challenge. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a couple minutes. So what are some stressors? What can you think of as stressors? Work. Children. Lots of homework. Lots of tests. College in general, right? What else? Finances. Economics, definitely. Cars. I remember when I was in college, it was like my car broke all the time. I was constantly calling my dad. Every time I called my dad, he would answer the phone and say, what's wrong with your car? I love you too. So we can think of mental stressors, we can think of physical stressors, emotional stressors, even environmental stressors. Loud noises that are constant can be considered a stressor. If you live by a train track, anybody live by train tracks? No? Anybody ever lived by train tracks? Is it annoying? You betcha, okay? And especially for the first couple of months, it's like every time it happens, you're just like, oh, stupid train, right? And then after a while, you get to the point where you don't even recognize it anymore. But it is initially something that causes your body to increase your heart rate and things like that. So it can be considered a stressor. So last night when Brandy let me know that she was sick and she wasn't going to be able to give this presentation, that obviously caused a slight amount of stress for me as the person who organizes the lecture series, because I'm thinking, do I cancel it? Do I do it myself? If I do it myself, how long is it going to take? And then I have 2 little boys, 3 and 1.5, or 3.5 and 1.5. And so here's the 3-year-old, mommy, 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 mom, mommy, 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 mommy. Seriously? Be quiet, right? Noise, constant noise is a stressor. So if we've got all of these things going on, small amount of stress really kind of starts down here. You can feel it a little bit, but it's not that influential in your everyday behaviors. It's not influential in terms of how you react to other people. Once we get to like here, and someone just kind of pokes you with a stick, just a little bit, it's like you go off the edge with your stress. Does that make sense? Okay, so stress is a process in that it builds, and especially if we've got long-term stressors. So is stress always bad? What do you think? No? Can you think of some things that would be considered stressors that would be considered good? Okay, so feeling accomplished working on a project, so processing the project, yes, definitely. What else? Good stressors. Everybody's like, no. Planning a birthday party, planning a wedding. Anybody ever planned a wedding? Experiencing a competition, yes. Anybody ever planned a wedding? Okay. Talk about how other people feel like they can influence your wedding. Exactly, okay? There's all these people that are saying, I think you should do this, and I think you should do that. And then this person sends you money and then says, oh, but I don't like that dress you picked out. And so you start to feel all of these kind of pressures from all these different places. And then someone says, well, I don't like that hotel, so I'm not going to stay there. I don't like that food, so I'm not going to eat it. And the stress starts to build. So on the day of your actual wedding, is it really all that fun? Probably not, right? So we have what we call eustress, which is the term for a positive stressor. And the body's going to react to this stressor the same if it's a positive or a negative stressor. So eustress is positive stress, something that, I'm working towards a goal, something that I like, even though it's causing me some sort of stress. And then distress, we all know what that is. That's when we get into a car accident. That stresses us out. That is not a good stressor. That is distress. All right? So we can talk about the duration of stressors. Short-term stressors, what we call acute stress. You have to do a presentation tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and it has to be on health and stress. That would be a short-term stressor, right? It's going to go away very quickly. You don't have enough money to pay your bills until Wednesday, and then on Wednesday you will. That's a short-term stressor. The amount of stress that you experience is not going to stay for a period of time. We can also talk about daily hassles. Daily hassles are like the little things that happen to you almost every day that kind of build up. Examples would be things like traffic, mommy, 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 constant noise. What else? My next door neighbor's dog barks all night long. All night long. Awesome, right? My neighbor wonders why every once in a while we go give it a bath. I mean, spray it with the hose, but it shuts it up. So daily hassles are these little things that happen all the time, and they're small, but if you add them all up, that's where we start to experience more stress. Then we can talk about, click over here, Liz. Then we can talk about long-term or chronic stressors. Health for some people is a chronic stressor. If you have cancer, if you are pregnant, that's 9 months. That can be considered a longer-term stressor than a short-term stressor. If you constantly at work are getting berated by your boss and you go to work stressed out because you're worried about how your boss is going to respond to you, that can be considered a long-term stressor. All right? So really anything that's lasting longer than 6 months is causing your body to be on this constant edge of stress, just waiting for something to happen, waiting to run away from that bear, when in fact, the bear is your boss and he's going to be there every day. Fun. And then persistent stress is something that is long-term and it's going to stay there. And think about being in a bad marriage. You could probably get a new job, right? But then again, if you're married to somebody that is a very negative person and they're constantly saying negative things to you. So persistent stress is both long-term and it's going to be happening often. Right? All of these things obviously can impact our health. So let's look at some of the major causes of stress. 2011, the American Psychological Association did a survey, and their 3 top were work, money, and the economy. Sounds like a fantastic time, right? So work is a lot of our lives, and we want to make sure that work is going to be beneficial to us and not a stressor. Because if you spend almost 50% of your week doing this thing that causes you stress, is that healthy? Is that beneficial for you? Most likely not. Right? And we also want to add explanatory style, which is how we explain life events. Some people have a negative style where they attribute failure to the self, to internal characteristics, so my personality, and stable characteristics. So these are the folks that say, I always screw up. Why do I even try? So a negative explanatory style is going to increase stress as opposed to decrease stress. Whereas a positive explanatory style can say, you know what, sometimes stuff just happens. You ever notice that when you say, whatever, stuff just happens, get it done and move on. Do you feel stressed? Maybe a little bit, but definitely not as much as if you sit here and you just constantly think negatively about all of the experiences that you're having. Does that make sense? All right? So how you explain something is going to impact how you perceive it, which is going to then impact the stress that you experience. So let's get into some biology. The brain and the body on stress. So when we experience a stressor, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal or HPA system is activated. And what that does is it releases the steroid hormones like cortisol, and that makes your heart, your lungs, other systems ready to fight or flight. So sympathetic nervous system is ready to go. This is the nerve part of your nervous system that jacks you up, sends blood out to all of your muscles, gets you ready to either, fight off this person who's annoying you or run away. Now, it increases our blood pressure, our heart rate, but it's also going to decrease your immune functioning. And if we, as we'll see in a couple minutes, if we experience stress over a long period of time, then we're more likely to get sick. We're more likely to get a cold. We're more likely to pick up that lovely flu virus that's going around, etc. So when we're stressed, we start breathing rapidly, which means that the lungs are getting more oxygen, the blood is more oxygenated, it increases the blood flow, fluids are diverted from non-essential functions. That's why your mouth gets dry when you're stressed out, because your brain basically says, yeah, you don't need that right now. We're not going to do any digestion stuff. We're stressed. We're just going to do stress. Our skin gets clammy because the body and the brain divert all of your blood away from the skin to essential functions. And so your skin gets clammy. So if you've ever done a speech where you stood up there and the heart started going and your hands got clammy, now you can understand biologically where it came from. So exciting, right? We also are going to have reduced digestive activity. Now let's think about that. If a person experiences long-term stress, is it possible that they could gain weight because of this? Yeah, okay? So stress not only causes all sorts of physiological problems that you don't like acne and hair falling out, but it can also be influential in terms of weight gain as well. All of these are motivating reasons not to become stressed, right? So HPA is going to release neurotransmitters like dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine, which is adrenaline. And those neurotransmitters are going to activate your amygdala, the emotion center of the brain, and which is going to cause you to have emotional responses to the stressor, such as fear. So the brain's going to release neuropeptide S, which is going to wake up the brain. So you are no longer sleepy. You've ever been driving, you almost nod off, you almost run into the barrier, and then you recognize you almost ran into the barrier, and you're like, awake, neuropeptide S. Okay? It causes you to be alert and to feel this sense of like urgency. We're going to decrease the function of our short-term memory, which means we're going to decrease also concentration, inhibition, and rational thought. All things going on in your amazingly important frontal lobe. So when the body and the brain become stressed, we basically shut down functions that are not currently essential, which include things like creating new memories. And this is one of the reasons why if you've ever been in a car accident, you may not remember bits and pieces of it. You may remember the parts that were most emotional to you, as we'll look at in a minute, but you may not remember well the entire process. Because short-term memory, yeah, it's not necessary during this time period, so we're just going to shut that off so that we can divert essential function to the fight or flight response. Okay? Neurotransmitters are going to signal the hippocampus, which creates long-term memories to store the experience in long-term memory. And this is how we can get emotionally tagged memories. What I call an emotional tag is when we remember something, a car accident, and you have this emotional feeling to it, but you can't remember all of the specific details to it. Does that make sense? You remember it as an experience, but you wouldn't be able to sit down and date, minute by minute how it happened. Now, when the stress decreases, which hopefully it does quickly, the parasympathetic nervous system brings all of our systems back to normal, which is what we call the relaxation response. So the brain no longer sends out your neurotransmitters, stress hormones are decreased, etc. Hopefully. Now, what happens, though, if I'm a person who's under constant stress? What do you think happens? Ma'am? We'll get there. But think about this. So we start here, we go through this entire process, but we never get to the stress decreases part. We just start over again. So we're causing our heart to pump at a stressed rate for a long period of time. We're causing our lungs to work at a stressed rate for a long period of time. We're causing our body to be constantly ready to go for a long period of time. And it becomes like the body's new norm. And so people who experience long-term stress are more likely to get frustrated easily because they've already got all of these stress hormones going. So you just kind of push a little bit and it moves them into the negative, the stress reaction of yelling, being frustrated with other people, even when it's not you personally that they're frustrated with. So why would we have this stress response? Well, historically, it was useful if a tiger was chasing you, right? We don't have many tigers chasing us anymore, thankfully, but it was useful when that was going on. And now it's beneficial to increase our arousal and our attention. So when we become stressed out, we focus, right? We're super focused at that point. And hopefully we are able to remember what we're supposed to be doing, even though short-term memory is kind of off in left field because you're stressed. So what are some of the drawbacks? Well, long-term stress causes these chemicals to hang out in the body for long periods of time. And if they're unused, if we don't fight someone off, if we don't run, what will happen is those chemicals actually start to eat away at the inside of your body. they will actually start to eat away at the muscle tissue that they have prepared to respond. Yeah. So the whole idea of stewing in your juices, if you've ever heard of this phrase, is the idea of quite literally sitting in neurotransmitter and corticosteroids that are causing you to be ready to go. And if you just sit there on the couch, angry, watching television, you're really stewing in your own juices. And if we do this for a long period of time, it's going to cause muscle atrophy, all that sort of stuff, because the chemicals are going to start eating away at your muscles. Not so hot, right? So, let's talk about some psychological responses. We've talked about biological responses. Let's talk about some psychological responses to stress. So, the general adaptation syndrome is the body's short-term and long-term responses to stress, and we've got some stages to it. So first of all is the alarm reaction. It's basically where the body is prepped for fight or flight, just like we talked about previously, and our immune response is decreased. So you'll notice that when you become stressed, you're more likely to get a cold, get the flu, etc., which we all know is not beneficial at all when we're under stress. I have a paper due Thursday, and now here I'm getting this stupid cold. Why am I getting this stupid cold? Because I've been under stress for a long period of time, and now I'm getting this cold even though I have this paper due. So stage 2 is resistance. If this is an ongoing stressor, your body adapts, just like I said before. So this becomes the new norm. And we actually change the body. We change the body chemistry, and we can make changes to behavior. So let's say that the stressor you're putting on your body is not eating, either because you can't afford food or because you have decided that you're too fat, and even though you're probably not, and you need to stop eating. So that is the stressor you're putting on your body, is lack of nutrients. What your body will say is, okay, well, if you're not going to provide us with the nutrients that we need, then we're going to decrease our activity. That is the body's behavioral response to the stressor, which makes sense, right? If I don't have the chemicals in my brain to push my body to do the things that I need to do, if I don't have sugar available in my bloodstream to do these things, then I'll just be a lump on the couch. And I won't have to have those sugars, right? And I'll lose weight. No, because you'll be a lump on the couch. And then the last stage is what we call exhaustion. This is where the immune system decreases functioning. We can experience infection. We can experience problems with fluctuating blood pressure. We can experience heart attacks, like you said. So this is a long-term experience. This is not just, I experienced stress last week, I had a heart attack this week, unless it is a hardcore stressor. But really, this is a very long period of time. So, what can stress do to you? Well, we can see lots of outcomes from stress. Skin breakouts. You ever notice that when you get really stressed out, your skin starts to, have these little spots on them, pimples, whatever you want to call them. My 3-year-old will come up to you and poke it and say, "Oh, you have a boo-boo," and then poke it, and you're like, "Thanks for the reminder, kid." I felt bad. We went to a friend's house. She has a 15-year-old who has acne, and my son went up to him and said, "You have boo-boos all over your face." He was a good sport about it because he understands that my son is 3, but it was just like, just please don't. Oh, never mind. You're going to say it anyway. So skin breakouts are caused by release of hormones, but they're also caused by not cleaning our face as well as we should. And when we get stressed out, sometimes we forget to do certain things. You forget to take your contacts out before you go to bed. You may not have taken a shower yesterday because you were a little busy, things like that. So when dirt, other things get into our pores, clogs the pores, brain is releasing cortisol, which increases oil production on the skin, which is trying to push the oil out. Dirt's clogging the skin, and thus we have a nice little eruption on the skin. All right? A lot of times people tell me that in order to try to get rid of that, they take really hot showers. or to decrease their stress, they take really hot showers. And this is actually problematic because hot showers wash off all of the oil that's already on your skin. And so your skin makes more, and a lot more. So it basically doubles what it had already put on there. So if you take a hot shower, really what you're telling your skin is, we need more oil. So you're not really doing yourself a favor. If you want to take a hot shower because it relaxes you, fantastic. Finish your shower with a cooler spray in order to close the pores to decrease that actual oil production. We have our hair will fall out when we become stressed out. We were just talking about this morning. A lot of times when your hair grows back after it's fallen out, what color does it grow in as? Gray hair, right? So if you're under a lot of stress, you'll notice when you're taking a shower, all of this stuff in the drain, or it's in your hands, and then it starts growing back, and you've got all sorts of gray bits. Have you ever noticed or seen images of people who become the president and then, like, after a year or two, they don't look so hot, do they? So stress impacts the hair, impacts the skin, all sorts of stuff. We also, when we're stressed, we tend to twirl our hair or like pull at it, and that causes it to fall out as well. We can see that people are in a constant state of anxiety, this constant, like you come up to them, you touch them, and you say, how was your day? And they're doing this number, and you're like, you need to relax a little bit because something's going on, right? So when we're under constant stress, the body is just always ready for something. It doesn't know what, but it's something out there, and it's going to happen, and I have to wait for it. Now, if we're always in this constant state of stress, then we're going to have short-term memory problems. So all that studying you did last night, not going anywhere. Fantastic, right? So we need to make sure that if we're trying to study, we have a test tomorrow, that we relax as best as we can. I know that sounds really funny. You're probably trying to laugh at me right now. But we relax as best as we can prior to studying so that our brain is capable of accepting that information, taking it into a short-term memory, and then sending it to the hippocampus and turning it into a long-term memory. If we don't, then you're going to go take the test tomorrow and go, I know what that word means, but I can't remember, and I studied it last night, and this is so frustrating. Which actually increases rather than decreases your stress, right? Heart complications. So if our heart constantly feels like it's in fight or flight, it's always beating, always beating, always beating. What happens if we buy an electronic item that has a motor and you just leave it on all the time? Eventually, what will the motor do? Die, burn out. Do you see where I'm going with this? Okay, so if your heart is pumping, 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 and it's pumping way too much because it constantly feels like it's under stress, eventually it could just burn out. Or one side could burn out. One valve could burn out. You could start experiencing heart palpitations, all of those sorts of things. So, again, hopefully we've realized pretty quickly this is not something that we want to experience long term, right? And if people think in terms of it's never going to get better, all or nothing thinking, they're more likely to experience depression. They're more likely to experience long-term anxiety as well. So lots of not so hot aspects to long-term stress. So the question becomes, okay, two options. First of all, I would like to avoid it, but most of the time I can't avoid it, so how do I manage it? Right? So let's talk about avoiding it first. So one thing we're going to talk about is our perception of the stressor. Many times when we encounter a stressor, we think of it as a threat. This is something that is going to make me look bad. This is something that's going to kill my GPA. This is something that's going to make me look stupid in front of my peers. You were talking about, doing a match or something like that, and I'm going to fail, and I'm going to look like a jerk. Those sorts of things. So if we think of something as a threat, it is more likely to cause us longer-term stress. Whereas if I think of it like a challenge, and I tell this to my students all the time, we have a test on Wednesday, and you guys are going to kick that test's ass. What I'm telling them is think of it as a challenge. Think of it as a game where you're trying to show me just how much you've learned in my class. Don't think of it like a threat that's going to kill your grade, because it won't if you've taken my classes, you know that. But think of it instead as a challenge, a way to show me and yourself just how much you've learned this semester. All right? If we think of something as a challenge as opposed to a threat, we're less likely to experience stress about it. Well, actually, we're more likely to experience eustress, the good stress, less likely to experience distress about it. Make sense? Okay? So, think about the things that are stressing you out right now. How can you take them from a threat and turn them into something that is challenging to you that you personally want to work on? We also want to think about who's controlling our behaviors. If we talk about someone having an internal locus of control, that person feels that they are in control of their behaviors, they are in control of what happens to them, they are less likely to experience stress because they know that they can make changes that can benefit themselves. Now, if they have an external locus of control, someone outside of me does stuff to me, they're more likely to experience stress. So I've talked to so many students that say, that teacher gave me a D. That would be an external locus of control, right? Now, did you earn the D, or did they just, pick them out of a hat and say, here you go, here's your D? Most likely you earned your D. Now, did you earn it on purpose? Probably not. But they didn't just pick it out of a hat and assign it to you. And if they did, you should talk to a dean about that. So we want to think about, how are we perceiving this stressor? Is it something that I can control, or is it something that is imposed upon me? We want to know our limits and stick with them. How many people here are likely to say yes to just way too much crap? Raise your hand. Probably about half of you, right? So people say like, hey, can you do this for me? Sure. And then someone else, hey, can you do this for me? Sure. And then, my sure list is this long, and I'm only this tall, and we've got a problem, right? So instead, you have to know your limits. You have to know when to say no. And you also have to know that you don't have to say yes to everybody. If you said yes, or you were thinking about saying yes, then probably there's someone else out there that will say yes. So, if Melanie asked me to do something for her and I say, you know what, Melanie, I just don't have the time this week and I am sorry. I'm sure Melanie can find somebody else to do that for her, right? So we don't really have to feel that bad. Now, a lot of times, though, it's that kind of that ego narcissism thing, like, but I wanted to. I understand that, but if you wanted to maintain your stress level at a lower level, my suggestion is just say no. Not just to drugs, joking, but to everything. We know we're not Mother Teresa. I honestly wonder what her stress level was. She always looks so serene in the pictures, but at the same time, with all of these, like the weight of the world on your shoulders, really could you just be like, my children? I'm not sure about that. So sometimes we get frustrated, and we tell people that, and we show people that. Is that normal? Yeah, it is, okay? And as humans, as parents, as adults, we need to accept that our stress level is going to cause us to probably pop off at the mouth at somebody. And we need to also recognize that it's important to do what? I'm sorry. Apologize. Okay? So a lot of times it happens like right after you do it. You say something and then you're just like, oh, you know what? I'm really sorry. I'm not angry at you. I'm up to here with my stress level. And it's not you, it's me. Right? So actually admitting that, being humble enough to admit that, is beneficial for you, both you and the person who's probably crying in the hallway right now because you just insulted them. Hello? There we go. So how else to avoid? Plan, schedule, remind yourself. So make a plan to finish all of your required activities. If you're in school, get one of those lovely schedule books and tell yourself, lie to yourself. Assignment's due on Thursday. Lie to yourself. Tell yourself it's due on Tuesday, so that self does it on Tuesday or before Tuesday. That would be fantastic as well. And then that way you're not passing it in at the last minute, which is way more stressful than doing it early. Okay? So make a plan if you have to. You've got this paper assignment, and the instructor hasn't given you kind of a process of how to write it. They just said it's due on the 27th of May. Okay, think to yourself, how do I work best? How long do I need to write a rough draft? How long do I need to research? And actually write out your own plan to complete this activity. And whenever you have a chance, do a small part of that activity. A lot of times I will list off really small things. I have this binder next to my desk, and I list off everything that comes to my brain, and I'm like, oh, I have to do such and such. I write it down. Even if it's small and stupid, like email so-and-so happy birthday, right? But then once I'm like done with everything I need, then I look at the book and I say, oh, I got to email Melody happy birthday. Happy birthday, Melody. I hope it is fantastic. Liz, cross it off. Yes. What else do I have to do, right? So planning, implementing, scheduling, and then also sometimes most of us have that little, phone that makes lots of noise, which actually is a stressor more than anything else, but we won't even get into that. How many times have you felt stressed when the phone went off for any reason whatsoever? It dinged, you have an email, the text messages, and then if you have an iPhone, if you haven't fixed it, it tells you twice if you have a text message. You're like, dude, I know, just leave me alone, right? Causes us stress or adds on to the stress that we already have. So schedule reminders on your phone, though, if you need to. And they can pop up without an actual audio reminder, just a visual reminder. So make sure that you pay this bill tonight so it's paid on time so you don't get a late fee, something like that. Okay? That way, you don't have to try to maintain it in your memory. Because if you think about it, short-term memory can hold up to 7 things at once. If you've got 19 people to say happy birthday to within the next week, 12 are going to lose out. Right? So, write it down. Put an announcement on your phone or wherever you need to remind yourself. And then not constantly, but go back to those reminders and say, okay, what else do I need to do today? Let's cross off some of this stuff on my list. All right? If you've taken my intro psych class, you know just how important sleep is in terms of memory, in terms of memory creation, in terms of actually weight and weight gain. So we've done a lot of research on sleep itself. What we've found is that people who sleep more experience less stress. Now, I'm not saying more as in sleep 10 hours a day, because that's bad for some people. We'll get into that in a second. So they're less likely to experience stress. They're more likely to have good memories. And they're less likely to say stupid stuff, because the frontal lobe needs a lot of sleep. And the frontal lobe is what makes decisions like, don't say that, and then you actually say it because you haven't slept enough. You ever had that experience? Where brain says, please don't say that. You're going to look like, oh, you said it anyway, because you're so tired, right? So sleep is super, super important. Sleep is when the body fixes itself when it's sick. So if you're sick, remember mom said, go lay down, take a nap. And you said, but I don't want to. I want to stay up and watch TV, even though I'm sick. Do you remember that? You really should have listened to her. And now we know that we should, right? Because we go lay down whenever we're sick. So sleep is going to be really important in terms of memory, in terms of decreasing stress levels, etc. Scheduling relaxation. It sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? Like, I should be able to relax whenever I want to, damn it. I completely agree with you. But if your schedule is such that you can't just find the time to flop on the couch and watch the 5 DVR Grey's Anatomies that you have, or that I have, then you need to schedule time to do that. Because relaxation, it's time periods during the day where you're not stressed out, where you're not thinking about all these things that you need to do, are when your body is able to do that relaxation response. Does that make sense? So even if you need to schedule it, which I know sounds ludicrous, you still need to do it. It's a half an hour before you go to bed. You sit down and read that crap book, whatever it is that you really wanted to read. Mine's World War Z. I only read it 10 minutes a night. I still haven't finished it. That's really bad, right? But you need to schedule relaxation time for brain, for body, for mental health in general. So how can we manage our stress? Well, hobbies and relaxation activities are going to be one way that people try to do that. So some people, well, let's see, who has a hobby? Anybody? What's your hobby?
I like to paint.
You like to paint? Okay. And we know that repetitive motion is actually relaxing. So painting can be repetitive motion depending on what you're doing. And so it can be relaxing even of itself in the movement. Yeah? So painting, what else? Sir? Playing music, yes. Again, we've also got the repetitive part to it, but we also have the really well-learned response part to it. So if you've been doing this for a really long time, then it's just something that you do, and it helps your body to kind of release some of those neurotransmitters and chemicals. What else you got? Hobbies. Nobody else has hobbies. Hiking, yes. Outdoors, awesome. Exercise, get rid of the excess neurotransmitters and the cortisol and the stress hormones. Yes, awesome. And there's some research that says that when we see green things outside, it has a relaxing response on the body and the brain by itself. There was some research relating to attention deficit disorder about this a couple years ago. So we painted my stepson's bedroom like this bright green, thinking like, right, here, there you go. Didn't work out so well. But being outside, breathing in the oxygen, being around nature can definitely be relaxing. What else? Before I had kids, I used to knit. That was very relaxing. I could sit and watch TV and just do this. And now I realize why my grandmother used to do it all the time. And she was fantastic at it. So some of us have hobbies, and those hobbies can be relaxing. Some people use substances, and they kind of think of that as their hobby. And they think of that as relaxing. Anybody know cigarette smokers? Raise your hand. Doesn't have to be you, by the way. So do those people perceive going out, sitting and smoking a cigarette by themselves as relaxing? You betcha. And is it kind of like their hobby? Yeah. Okay. Now, is it beneficial long-term wise? No. But here's something interesting. I've talked to so many people who say, I really want to quit smoking, but right now is not a good time. What do you mean by that? What they mean by that is they're already under so much stress. Like their stress level is already to here. If you want to add quitting smoking, which removes all of these chemicals from the body that the body is used to, which is going to increase the stress level exponentially. Is that really something you want to do when you're already this stressed out? No. And so we can expect that if we have a friend who quits using their substance while they're already under a high amount of stress, then most likely they're going to relapse. Now, I'm not saying that if you have a friend who says, I'm going to quit smoking this week, even though I have 5 papers due, that you should say, dude, that's a bad idea. You should wait till the end of the semester. I'm not saying that. I am saying, though, expect that they're going to be even more stressed, that they're probably going to snap at you, and that they may actually not do so hot with the whole quitting thing. Okay? So for many people, using a substance is their relaxation. They associate it through classical conditioning with the relaxation response. And that's just, when they get stressed, I just want to sit outside and smoke a cigarette. And that's what you hear from people. Okay? Exercise. We talked a little bit about this already. It releases those pent-up neurotransmitters and endorphins. It's awesome. Also, when sometimes people feel stressed about body image. You ever seen this? That they feel stressed about, I've got some here and some extra here and some extra here, and I don't really like that, and I get this part, and it's bad. So exercise can actually help us work on that as well. So we increase our body image, and we get rid of all of those rogue neurotransmitters and corticosteroids that are floating around in our bodies. Double win, right? And you can actually exercise with a friend. We know that social interaction is beneficial in terms of decreasing stress. I know this sounds really funny, but breathing. You ever notice that when you get really stressed out, you stop breathing? And then you start doing it again? You ever notice that? Or you just, you're so focused on something that you stop breathing, and then you start breathing, you don't realize you stopped breathing until you started it again? Okay. Breathing's important. I know you know this. But research has been done all over the globe, but especially in India, where we focus on the importance in the use of breathing. And what we know is that when we focus on our breathing, we can bring our heart rate down, we can decrease our blood pressure simply by decreasing our rate of breathing. So breathe in through your nose, breathe out slowly through your mouth. Do that 4 or 5 times. For some people that smoke, that's just as good decreasing that stress as smoking a cigarette. So if it helps a smoker decrease their urge to smoke a cigarette, then that might help you to decrease that urge to punch the person who sits next to you in class in the face. Huh? Right? So focusing on your breathing and decreasing that heart rate, decreasing that blood pressure through breathing can be really beneficial. Meditation. How many people have ever tried meditation? Raise your hand. Okay. How many people still do it? Raise your hand. It's like 4, right? So a lot of times I talk to folks and they say, I tried that meditation thing and it didn't work for me. How many times did you try it? Once. Okay. So here's what's going on. Your brain, it's got all of this stuff. Probably has all these messages going around. You need to do this, you need to do that, you need to call this person, you need to go here, and you need to do this, right? And if you sit down and you try to tell brain, okay, brain, listen up. We're going to meditate. And meditation requires that we focus intently on one small thing. It can be a word, it can be an image, it can be something. A lot of times brain says to you, you're funny, right? Now, if you keep at it, if you keep trying, over time, you will get to the point where you can completely clear your mind. And I know this sounds, for people who have all of this stuff going on, I know this sounds absolutely ridiculous. You're like, there's no way, woman. There is, I promise. Okay? But it takes practice. So you can find YouTube videos on meditation. And they'll sit with you and they'll say, okay, we're going to focus on this, this phrase, and we're going to close our eyes and just relax your body. Sit down so you don't fall down. Relax your body, relax your brain. And whenever a thought comes into your brain, just dismiss it and focus on the word. Dismiss it and focus on the word. Over time, if you do this, you will actually be able to just focus. And after people meditate, they feel so much more able to do all of those things that came into their head while they were trying to meditate. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like a way to focus the brain, sharpen the pencil of the brain so that it can actually have the energy to do all of this stuff that I need to do. But it's going to take practice. You can't just do it tomorrow and be done with it. You actually have to do it multiple days, not just once. Take a break. I don't know about you, but at my house, as a parent of a 3.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and the wife of an artist who has all of these amazing ideas that he just needs to talk about all at once, every once in a while I'm just like, you know what? Everybody needs to shut up. I've decided. Earmuffs don't work so well, so Mommy just goes outside, and she sits on the patio, and she breathes. And Silas comes outside, he's a 3.5-year-old, and he says, Mommy's taking a break. Okay. And he has now learned that when Mommy takes a break, you leave her alone. Now, is he allowed to take a break when he's frustrated or overwhelmed? You bet. Okay? We all are. But just make sure that you let everybody else know that you're taking a break so that you're not just, disappearing, because that doesn't work out well for your spouse. So we do sometimes just need that time to just sit by ourselves, no stimuli, no audio stimuli, maybe even no visual stimuli. You know, you sit down on the porch, close your eyes, and just listen to, you know, the next door neighbor's dog barking. I'm joking. But the crickets, whatever it is, and just breathe and relax. Don't focus on anybody else. Just focus on relaxing. Because if you don't, it's possible that, you know, a half an hour down the road when you're trying to cook dinner and this one's got a YouTube video going and your husband's trying to tell you about what he did at work today and this one's yelling, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, mommy," and the 1-year-old's trying to get into the dishwasher, that you may just, "Everybody shut up!" Right? You've done it before. So, take a break so that you can actually get back some of that mental energy. We talked a little bit about this already. Visualizing yourself doing well and putting your plan in place. So visualize and attack. Not really attack, but plan, visualize, and then attack. So visualize yourself doing well on a test and then go kick the test's ass. Rather than saying to yourself like, "Oh, I'm going to do so bad on this test," that's causing you even more stress. These negative self-thoughts that you have are going to make it even worse. All right? Social support and pet support, which I know sounds really funny. But have you ever felt sad petting a puppy? No. Kitten, purring. Can you feel like anxious while this is going on? No, for some reason you can't. So sometimes we just need to like go to the PCA and say like, "I just need to pet a dog," if you don't own one. Or a friend's house, "Can I please just pet your dog?" Sounds funny, but you can explain to them that, you know, I said you should. But yeah, having social support, people to talk to, a friend, someone just to listen. We don't want you to solve our problems. We just want you to listen. We just want to kvetch, or whatever other word you want to use for it. This is going on the internet, so I don't use the B word, right? But we just want to vent. Just let me relax, get this all out. Don't try to fix my problems for me. And if I have a question for you, like, do you have any suggestions for how I could fix this? I will ask you. But otherwise, don't offer advice, because most of the time people just want you to listen. All right? So be socially supportive for your friends, but also turn to your friends when you need social support. Animals, again, are really good for that. I remember when I first moved to Texas in 2005, I had nothing. I slept in a sleeping bag on the floor. And I had a dog. Her name was Lily. And Lily sat on the futon with me, and we just hung out. And it made me happy. All right? So just having a pet, it's like having an unconditional friend. You can say, like, "I hate you, dog," and the dog goes, right? So pets are really good in terms of social support. And one of the things that we know is that religion is a really good social support. How many people attend church? Okay. Now, if you're stressed out, getting ready for church, you can still be stressed out. You ever notice, though, like you walk into church and you go and you sit down, are you stressed out? For some reason, it's like it just disappears. You can't think about that because we're focusing on other stuff, especially if, certain religions, there's lots of calisthenics involved, the kneeling and the standing. I'm joking. But if you're so focused on something else, that stuff just goes away. Now, as soon as you walk back out and you walk to the car and you think, "Oh, now I have to make dinner after church," and it all comes back. But that experience gives us a small amount of time in order to decrease that stress response. And also, participating in the social network of your church can help you to have more social support as well. All right? So, double whammy, good job, religion, for helping us feel better on two fronts. So, that is my presentation. I want to thank you guys for attending today. I hope that you look for psychology lecture series in the future. Next semester, we've got 3 planned already. I've got one where a philosophy instructor is going to talk about free will, which should be really interesting. And then I've got a biology instructor talking about environmentalism and environmental psychology. And then I've got a geography instructor talking about different types of learning strategies, so cognitive psychology and learning strategies. So I hope that you'll look for psychology lecture series in the future. If you guys have questions, please feel free to ask them. Anybody? No? Okay. Thank you.